Have you ever worked at a fast food restaurant during the night shift? If you have, then you probably know. After 10 p.m., the world starts to change little by little. Things that don't appear on security cameras begin to show up. And once you witness it even once, you can never go back to a normal night shift. My name is Jake Connors. Until 2 months ago, I was just like you. I knew nothing. I didn't know there were rules that had to be followed during the night shift. I didn't know what happened to those who broke those rules. What I'm about to tell you is a true record of what I experienced at a small taco shop called Moss Tacos in Bentwater Corners. If you listen to this story until the end, you too will know the rules. And once you know them, they will know you too. But don't worry. If you know the rules, you can survive. At least, for now. It all started on a Friday night 2 months ago. It was my usual shift from 6 p.m. until midnight. Bentwater Corners was a small strip mall in the suburbs, lined with stores that looked like inferior copies of something successful. Our Moss Tacos, the neighboring Burgers Ahoy, and the mysterious Chester Bank, all of them felt like toys that had been exiled. We were sandwiched between another second-rate chain, Burgers Ahoy, and the enigmatic Chester Bank. The reason no one wanted to talk about Chester Bank wasn't just because it was mysterious. Once, a former employee said, "That place does its real business in the middle of the night." She quit the following week. I didn't ask why. It felt like something I shouldn't ask about. The bank's windows were always dark, and there wasn't even a sign showing business hours. But late at night, sometimes you could see pale blue light flickering inside. Due to my school schedule, I had no choice but to work late nights. From 6 p.m. until after midnight, the end time varied depending on how much cleaning there was. Usually, I was heading to my car by 12:01 a.m. After the dinner rush of about 15 people ended at 6 p.m., the rest was just killing time. Clean, prep, and when that was done, checking tasks. If there was still time, all the staff would take turns messing with our smartphones while being careful not to get caught by our manager, Mary. I didn't have a bad impression of Mary. She had been a full-time housewife for many years and suddenly found herself back in the job market due to divorce. Sometimes she showed excessive strictness, but she was understanding. I thought it was unfair how some of my coworkers treated her like a demon. She was just trying to fulfill her responsibilities as a boss. Most nights, I worked with the same crew. They were a diverse group, but everyone got along well. Like soldiers in the military. Those thrown into the same foxhole are bound together by shared hardships. Most nights, it was me, aspiring rapper Doug aka Doug Father, social media influencer wannabe Jenna, and a rotating cast of new hires. Tonight's newbie was a pale-skinned guy named Reggie. Doug constantly beatboxed while working, believing his music would define the next generation of hip-hop. He was 19 and still lived with his parents, but he took every shift to pay for studio time. His optimism was infectious and could make you laugh even on the worst nights. Jenna was 20 and had made it her life goal to gain 500,000 TikTok followers. She saw every moment as a content opportunity and always had her phone in hand. She might seem superficial, but she was actually very intelligent with sharp marketing instincts. And Reggie was a mystery. He was 18 but had the tired eyes of a 40-year-old. His resume listed previous jobs from 3 different states, all at late-night fast food places. When Mary asked during his interview why he moved around so much, he simply answered,
"I like night work. It's quiet."
While executing our usual routine of avoiding Mary, sailor-worthy cursing echoed from her small office. Taking this as a signal, I put away my smartphone and picked up a mop. As I was wringing out a rag, A flustered Mary rushed over to me. Her face was pale and she was in a panic state. Something was wrong.
Jake, I got a call from my ex-husband. Jeremy is playing Superman at home.
She sighed.
My ex-husband had Jeremy jump from the top bunk onto a pile of cushions. Anyway, Jeremy landed weird and might have broken his arm. They're heading to the emergency room now. I have to go.
Of course. Should we close the store or?
I can't close this early. If Mr. Adamant finds out, he'll kill me.
She sighed.
Would it be okay if I left you in charge of the store tonight? I'll give you the alarm code and keys. Jake, please.
Mary pleaded, placing her hand on my shoulder.
I can only trust you with this. The other kids can't handle it.
I readily agreed. At that time, I thought this would be a normal night. Mary went back to her office to pack up. When she was out of sight, Doug approached me. Doug nodded toward Mary's office.
What did the live, laugh, love lady want?
I grinned. She's leaving me in charge of the store tonight. Doug laughed.
Holy crap. Customers are gonna arrive by UFO.
Shut up. I lightly hit his arm.
Why didn't Mary choose me?
He frowned. I couldn't help but laugh. If I ran this store, we'd be competing with Taco Bell in 2 weeks. People would be breaking down the doors for Sopapedia Awesome and Sombrero taco boxes.
Yeah, and when we launch our new mascot, Mr. Taco, we'll be buried in money. No tortillas.
He added, Mr. Taco is the best name?
Americans need simple names. We're a simple people. But listen to this, Mr. Taco wears a giant sombrero and has bullet-like things on his chest. But instead of bullets, they're little tacos. Pretty cool, right?
In a world of living, breathing tacos, wouldn't those little tacos be baby tacos? That's a bit twisted, Doug.
Yeah, Jake's right. The name needs improvement,
said Jenna, joining us at the nacho station.
Mr. Taco won't work. When I started my GRWM videos, I called them Watch a Girl Glow Up to Stand Out. I gained 200 followers overnight.
That's because you were showing off your body lines, Jenna. You have the easy route.
Jenna laughed.
Easy? Try thinking of attractive daily content that satisfies 1,000 followers. Boobs and butt only go so far. Speaking of which, Mr. Taco might need a female companion, like Senorita Carnitas.
Good name, I said. Doug waved his hand.
You guys are overthinking it. Mr. Taco doesn't need a woman. He's too wild to be tamed. He has that iconic Ronald McDonald energy. Kids will want to take pictures with him and draw pictures. He'll probably win awards.
Let's ask Reggie for his opinion.
Jenna said.
Hey Reggie, what do you think about Mr. Taco?
Mr. Taco is bad.
Reggie's voice echoed. His voice was low and full of conviction.
In this place, mascots aren't living things, especially not at night.
As everyone stared at him, Reggie returned to silence, as if he had never said anything. After an awkward silence, Doug cleared his throat.
Well, anyway, we need a new mascot. Mr. Taco wears a giant sombrero and...
While the mascot discussion continued, Mary returned to the kitchen with her handbag over her shoulder and keys clutched in her hand. She called everyone over.
Everyone, my son is hurt, and I have to go. While I'm gone, Jake is in charge. What he says goes. If he tells me you gave him trouble, I swear to God, I'll have you cleaning grease traps for a week. Got it.
Everyone nodded. Mary placed her hand on my shoulder.
If anything happens, anything at all, don't hesitate to call or email me. Okay?
As she handed me the keys, her expression suddenly darkened.
Jake, just promise me one thing. No matter what weird stuff happens, don't leave the store until 2 a.m. And if someone waves at you from outside the store, never wave back.
Why?
I don't have time. Just promise me.
There was inexplicable fear in her eyes. I promise, I answered, confused.
Don't worry. Go to Jeremy.
He needs his mother.
Mary nodded gently and then rushed out of the store. Seconds later, we saw her taillights racing down the road. When I turned back to the staff, everyone already had their smartphones out. I wasn't angry. The cleaning was ahead of schedule, and the real boss was gone. At this time of night, we were just pushing the clock hands forward. It seemed easy enough to just pray that no fires would break out in the last few hours. 20 minutes after Mary left, the store phone rang. In that moment, our normal night came to an end. The restaurant phone started ringing, startling all of us. I had never heard the phone ring before. Jenna admitted she had never actually seen a landline until tonight. The phone was in Mary's office. Jenna, Doug, and I headed there. Reggie was in his own world, and we didn't worry about him. When I went to answer the phone in Mary's office, I noticed a handwritten note stuck to the wall. After 2 a.m., don't answer the drive-thru. Don't look directly out the windows. Don't go outside alone. Don't turn around if you hear friends' voices. The bottom part was torn, and I couldn't read the remaining items. Should I answer? I asked.
Hey, you're the boss.
Doug said. What if it's a supplier with questions about inventory?
No supplier calls a store at almost 10 p.m.
Jenna said. It might be Mr. Adamant, I said. What would he think if Mary didn't answer?
Tell him she's taking a giant shit and will call back later.
Doug said.
Guaranteed no follow-up questions.
Ew, that's gross, Doug.
Jenna grimaced. I'm answering the phone. I walked to Mary's office and picked up the receiver. Hello, this is Jake from Moss Tacos.
Hi, this is Paul Martin from Burgers Ahoy.
The voice on the other end was young and slightly confused.
There's someone who's been standing at your drive-thru for about 10 minutes now.
I was confused. If someone came to the drive-thru, a timer would activate, a bell would ring, and staff would respond. But tonight, I hadn't heard such sounds even once. Doug, check the monitor. Doug went to look at the security camera screen and came right back.
Nothing's showing up.
Paul continued.
It's a man in a black trench coat wearing a Philip Marlowe-style hat. I think it's called a derby hat. He's just standing there without moving.
I gave him my phone number and asked Paul to send me a video. Seconds later, the video arrived on my phone. Jenna excitedly held up her phone too.
This is definitely going viral.
When I played the video, there he was. Standing next to our drive-thru speaker was a man in a black trench coat and derby hat. But our security cameras showed nothing. Maybe it's a technical malfunction. I suggested a camera blind spot or dirty lens or something. But our system covered all directions with 6 cameras. There shouldn't be any blind spots. Plus, it was a new system installed just 3 months ago. Doug checked cameras from different angles, but the result was the same.
This is seriously weird, right? He's not showing up on any camera.
I felt my heartbeat quicken. There had to be a technical explanation. But deep down, I knew this wasn't a technical problem. Maybe I should go check it out. I said to no one in particular.
Absolutely don't.
Reggie said in a low voice. His sudden comment surprised us, as he had barely spoken until now.
Why?
Jenna asked.
Not worth the trouble.
Reggie looked away.
But it might be a suspicious person. I'll watch Jenna. Reggie will watch Reggie. Jake will watch the ghost. And more importantly, the cameras. Win-win, brother.
I'm going alone? I glared at Doug with a grimace.
Jake's the boss now, right?
Are you actually going to check it out?
Paul asked through the phone, sounding confused. Apparently so, I answered Paul, whom I'd never met, somewhat taking out my frustration on him.
I'll come too. I'm kind of curious.
Paul says he'll come with me, I said while glaring at the three of them.
Seriously? What a hero.
In the end, Paul and I decided to check it out together. As the acting manager, it was my responsibility, and if something happened, 2 people would be safer than 1. If anything happens, call the police, I told the remaining 3. Then contact Mary. Jenna handed me her phone.
Make sure you record it properly. No shaky camera work.
I went outside. The autumn night air stung my skin, and a strange smell like burnt hair hit my nose. That was the beginning of the second rule. When I stepped outside, I felt something different than usual. Bentwater Corners normally had the sound of cars from the nearby highway even late at night, but that night was unnaturally quiet. It was as if sound was being absorbed by something. The air also felt heavy, even though it wasn't humid. There was a sensation that clung to my skin. My skin picked up an electric feeling like before a storm. Paul came to Moss Tacos right away. He was taller than I expected and had a friendly smile.
Sorry for messing up your night.
It's okay. It's not often you get a chance to see a ghost up close. We proceeded along the building's wall. As we passed the second drive-through window, I could see Doug, Jenna, and Reggie watching us on the security camera monitor.
Hey, did you check the other cameras?
Paul asked. All 6. He's not showing up on any of them.
That's not normal, right?
I held up Jenna's phone and pressed the record button. Paul, any comments?
Jake, can I get a free churro shake when this is over?
I laughed. If we survive.
But Mr. Adamant wouldn't appreciate giving things away for free. Once, when I gave a DoorDash order that wasn't picked up to a homeless man, he threatened to fire me.
I stopped walking. Wait, does Mr. Adamant own both Burgers Ahoy and Moss Tacos?
Yeah, didn't you know? I love B horror movies. Mr. Adamant loves failing fast food franchises. Chester Bank probably funds his addiction.
You know about Chester Bank too? That's the first time I've heard of Chester Bank doing actual banking business, I said excitedly.
Apparently, Mr. Adamant has a relative who's a big shot at the bank.
That bank actually had humans working in it. The burnt hair smell became even stronger. This time, there was also a chemical like pungent odor mixed in. Then there was a crackling sound of electricity, and the entire strip mall lost power. In the darkness, we instinctively pressed ourselves against the wall. Then 3 intense sounds echoed. Thud, thud, thud. Someone was knocking on the drive-through window. We heard the window open, and Doug's voice called out.
Jake, power's out.
I know. You almost gave me a heart attack.
I saw the ghost. Just like Burger Boy said.
Jenna's voice came from behind.
Burger Boy?
Paul made a confused sound. I ignored him and continued. Where did you see it?
On the drive-through screen. Before the power went out, it was looking this way. It looked really angry.
Then only the drive-through menu lighting came back on. Everything else remained dark. But that one spot was eerily bright. When we cautiously craned our necks to look toward the light, Reggie was standing there. Reggie? What are you doing?
They came back.
Reggie's voice was shaking.
Can't move.
Then the lights went out again. I turned to check behind us, but I could only see Doug and Jenna fighting over the window gap. When I looked at Paul, he seemed equally confused. Do you smell burnt hair? That's when it happened. A low, rumbling sound echoed from the sky. It was more of a physical force than a sound. The sound waves made my body undulate, and I dropped to one knee. I covered my ears with both hands. but it was useless. My eardrums vibrated and tinnitus began. It was a sound I had never heard before. The drive-through menu lighting exploded, and glass fragments flew toward Reggie. He tried to raise his hands to protect his face, but in the last moment of light, I saw red cuts opening on his pale skin. Darkness again. A high-pitched screech echoed, and all glass within a 20-foot radius shattered. Moss Tacos' drive-through window also broke into 3 large pieces, fell to the ground, and shattered into fragments. With the window barrier gone, Jenna's terror-filled screams could be heard clearly. Doug was also shouting something, but I couldn't make it out over the rumbling from the sky. I closed my eyes. Mary hadn't told me anything about this kind of thing. In this state, I didn't think we could have avoided trouble even if we had stayed quietly inside the store. While my eyes were closed, strange memories surfaced. Fragments of childhood nightmares. Dreams of black shadows standing in the corner of my bedroom, staring at me. When I woke up, the shadows were gone, but the smell of burnt hair remained in the room. My mother always comforted me, saying, "It was just a bad dream." But now I understood. Those weren't dreams. They had existed since long ago. Since we were children, they had been watching, observing, and waiting. And now, for some reason, their waiting period was over. The rumbling shook my bones and churned my organs. I let out a scream that could reach my ancestors, but it too was swallowed by the flood of sound. Seconds later, the roar of the gods reached a sudden crescendo and then stopped completely. There wasn't even an echo. All I could hear was the lingering echo of my own hoarse screaming. Finally, my voice gave out too, and I collapsed to the ground. I couldn't breathe. Panic struck. I gasped for air like a goldfish. When I finally regained my breathing, I threw up my dinner. Looking at the ants near my vomit, I thought, "You guys just got a year's worth of food." When I finally stood up, Paul was also on the ground. He slowly got up, but his eyes were vacant and his face was frozen with shock. His mind was split like a tree struck by lightning. I grabbed his hand. It was cold and damp. I tried to make eye contact and speak, but no voice came out. I coughed to clear my throat, and finally words came. "We're alive. We're alive." His eyelids drooped, and I could see the fear draining from his body. Sweat appeared on his face, and he wiped it with trembling hands. I held his hand and applied gentle pressure to remind him he wasn't alone. For me too, human connection was a comfort. Doug's scream brought me back to reality. He was pointing at the sky. When I looked up, swirling lights of various colors were spiraling like a kaleidoscope. It was beautiful. It reminded me of paint dissolving in water. Irregular spiral patterns. Jenna was screaming too. I couldn't hear her words, but I knew what she wanted. I fumbled for her phone, pressed the record button, and pointed it at the sky. The screen showed an electric aurora dancing above us. The flying object made no sound at all. It just floated in the air, showing us the most incredible Christmas light show I had ever seen. "Maybe this is what you see before you die," I said without thinking.
I hope so.
Paul answered, mesmerized. We realized we were still holding hands. When I looked at Paul, there were red spots on his face. Not bloody cuts like Reggie's, but something like sunburn. I looked down at my own arms. Similar red spots were starting to appear. They felt warm and slightly itchy. It was like a mild sunburn, but happening at night in an environment without sunlight.
This might be radiation.
Paul murmured.
Some kind of energy emission.
That thought terrified me. If so, how much had we already been exposed? These red spots might be just the initial symptoms. That's right, Reggie. Where was he? Reggie, I shouted, but there was no answer. I ran to where he had been standing and again smelled burnt hair. There was also a chemical smell. A terrible thought crossed my mind. Was Paul's skin burning? Or mine? Paul walked up behind me. We reached the drive-through speaker, but Reggie was nowhere to be found. Only the thick smell of burnt hair lingered. I waved my hand to dispel the smell and called for him again. Reggie. He wasn't there. When I examined the spot where he had been standing, there were strange marks on the ground. They looked like footprints, but not human ones. The shape was similar to human feet, but the size was unnatural, and there seemed to be more toes. Those marks appeared suddenly and disappeared suddenly, as if something had descended from the sky along with Reggie and returned to the sky again. The concrete on the ground was discolored around the footprints. There were traces as if exposed to high heat, and the edges appeared slightly melted. This might have been the source of the burnt smell.
Where did he go?
Paul asked. They must have taken him.
Who's they? What the hell is happening?
You guys, look behind you.
Doug shouted from the window. In the shadows of the drive-through landscaping, we could see 3 human figures crouching in the darkness of the bushes. The smell of burnt hair wafted strongly from their direction. Even after Doug pointed them out, they didn't move a muscle. Paul nervously backed away.
This isn't worth $12 an hour.
I grabbed his arm to stop him. You're going to leave me here? There was a rustling sound from the bushes. A rhythmic clicking sound answered it. 2 of the figures in the shadows moved slightly. The rustling and clicking became faster, as if the 2 were arguing. Then silence. The bushes swayed, and the 3rd figure, which had been silent, began to walk. The broken drive-through light bulb began to glow again, as if resurrected from death. Even with the shattered filament, it emitted enough light to reveal the creature's true identity. It was the Derby Man. Up close, it looked male, but it was impossible to distinguish facial features. From a distance, it looked human, but as it got closer, that illusion crumbled. It was like a song that had the right pitch, but the wrong melody. In that moment, the concept of the uncanny valley crashed into my frontal lobe. We fear things that are similar to us, but are not us. This creature was not us. Not at all. Paul found my hand and gripped it. We didn't move. Hell, we barely breathed. The Derby Man took a step toward us. As it got closer, it looked more abnormal. Its face shared the same swirling watercolor paint we had seen in the sky. I wondered why it was dressed like Philip Marlowe. For a moment, I thought maybe the last time these creatures came here was during that era. Back then, his clothing would have blended in, but now it stood out. It had returned thinking it could imitate us, but discovered that we had changed.
What is this?
Paul asked in a trembling voice. His grip tightened. The creature in front of us made clicking and rustling sounds, as if it was responding in a language we didn't know. It took a step toward Paul, and I felt his body prepare to run. I squeezed his hand, a faint reminder that we were connected. Don't make any sudden movements, I warned. We don't know what it wants. The Derby Man stood in front of Paul. It looked him up and down, reached into its trench coat pocket, and pulled out a small handheld device. At first, I thought it was a weapon, but an explosion of smoke erupted and settled around us. It smelled like burnt hair and fresh donuts. At any other time, these 2 simultaneous smells would disgust anyone, but in this moment, they smelled wonderful. My body relaxed. My fingertips and toes went numb. I had to grip Jenna's phone tighter or I would have dropped it. Her phone was still recording. I swallowed hard and tried not to let on that I was doing something secret. I didn't know what I had filmed at this point, but I knew Jenna's follower count would balloon like ticks on a sleeping dog. When the creature twisted its hand, a glass lens appeared. The Derby man pressed several buttons, and a red horizontal laser shot out from the front. Paul flinched but stayed put. The laser scanned him from head to toe and disappeared. The Derby man made rustling, clicking, and ticking sounds. It might have said something profound, but I would never know. To me, it sounded like forest birds. Seconds later, the Derby man began to shake as if having a seizure. It tore at the clothes it was wearing. Its body was not human. It was like a doll. Paul and I backed away several steps. I wondered if this creature would explode, attack, or abduct us like Reggie. Instead, the sound of flesh being torn filled the air. Ribs opened in the watercolor paint face. Human-like skin peeled away, and blood spurted from burst veins. That's when I understood. It was molting. The shell fell to the cement with a wet sound. Seconds later, the mass of skin dissolved into nothing. We turned our attention back to the creature. The bloody mass moved around, and a new form emerged from the ether. It looked exactly like Paul. The creature clicked again. Its voice had become deeper. It pressed another button, and the musky donut smell dissipated. My mind cleared, and the fear I had been feeling plunged into a void. The two beings hiding in the bushes appeared. One looked like Reggie, and the other looked like me. My body turned to liquid, and I almost fainted. I staggered, but Paul caught me before I could hit my head on the ground. Two human dolls joined their companion in front of us. The smell of burnt hair was overwhelming. After a minute of clicking and rustling, another ear-splitting rumble exploded overhead. A flash of white light was so intense that our small section of the strip mall looked like noon. I closed my eyes and covered my ears again. The rumbling ended as abruptly as it began. When I opened my eyes, I saw a new world. It looked like our world, but felt changed. Uncanny Valley, I thought. I felt like I had seen something I shouldn't have seen and awakened from a long, detailed dream. The figures were gone, and a naked, confused Reggie stood in their place. He had many small cuts on his arms and face, but didn't appear to be injured. I noticed a complex pattern of 7 triangles on his thigh. At first glance, I thought it was a tribal tattoo, but I realized they were scars. 6 were old, but the 7th was bleeding. In that moment, I understood. Reggie had met these guys before. He had tried to tell me early on, but I hadn't listened to his words. I ran to him and shook him. His eyes fluttered open and looked at me through a haze. "Are you okay?"
It happened again, didn't it?
Reggie's voice was his own, but seemed to come from somewhere far away. It had an echoing quality, as if he was speaking from the bottom of a deep well. His pupils were abnormally dilated and responded sluggishly to light, but they gradually began to return to normal. I'm no doctor, but this looked like the process of recovering from a severe state of shock. "You remember what happened?" I asked gently.
Darkness.
He murmured.
Very long darkness. And I heard voices. Voices in a language I couldn't understand, but I knew what they meant. They were examining
Examining what?
whether I was compatible.
Paul was struggling with what had happened, but had enough sense to take off his hoodie and hand it to Reggie.
You look cold.
Reggie thanked him and put it on.
I'm sorry for getting you all involved.
What happened?
They always come back.
Jenna and Doug burst out of the door and ran over to us. Both were chattering, but it hit us as another wave of noise. I could hear Doug talking about everything we had just experienced, and Jenna began pleading for her phone. Jenna was in a mixed state of excitement and fear.
This is unbelievable. It's definitely going viral.
She shouted, but I could see her hands shaking. Her influencer instincts were conflicting with her survival instincts. Doug expressed his fear more directly.
Were those real aliens? Seriously? Does that mean we almost got abducted?
His voice was excited, but his eyes were full of anxiety. Neither of them fully understood what had happened. Since they had been watching through the window, they hadn't witnessed the detailed transformation process or the appearance of the replicas, but it was still a terrifying enough experience. I felt it in my hand and handed it to her without thinking.
What's wrong?
Jenna was confused. What? I finally managed to ask.
Nothing was recorded. The file is there, but it shows as corrupted.
Oh, they do that.
Reggie said.
I've never successfully filmed them.
That's the worst.
Jenna said, but softened her expression when she looked at me.
Sorry, Jake.
We helped him up from the ground and formed a small wall to give him privacy.
Hey,
Doug said.
what happened here?
He was staring at Chester Bank. Thick, raised black soot decorated the brick. The soot formed the same pattern that had been marked on Reggie's thigh. The spaces between the patterns looked washed out, as if the sun had faded the stone. When I got closer to examine Chester Bank's wall, I found that the soot patterns weren't superficial. They had penetrated deep into the building materials, as if they had been burned in at high temperature. The precision of the patterns was also astonishing. Each triangle was a perfect geometric shape with edges as straight as if drawn with a ruler. With human technology, it would be impossible to burn such precise patterns all at once. Most puzzling was that parts of the pattern seemed to continue inside the building, as if they had passed through the wall and were imprinted on the building's structure itself.
Mr. Adamant is going to be furious.
Doug said. What Mr. Adamant thought was the least of our concerns. When Doug approached the wall to touch the soot, Jenna's sharp scream stopped him.
It might be poisonous, idiot.
Right.
He said sheepishly. We helped Reggie back to the restaurant. Paul and I looked at each other. There was a lot to say, but we couldn't find the words. But suddenly, I remembered when we had talked together like this before. It wasn't a ghost. He laughed.
No need to worry about calling Ghostbusters.
Just men in black.
Are you okay?
He asked. Not at all.
Me neither.
I think I'll close the store early tonight.
I agree. How about coffee? While we talk about this.
I feel like having strong liquor, about 10 drinks. I laughed.
I know a place. I'll text you the address.
He said.
I should go back and check on my staff too.
Burgers ahoy, I said, and immediately regretted it.
Burgers ahoy.
He repeated with a small smile. He waved slightly as he walked away, and I laughed. Nothing was funny. It was incredibly unfunny. But my mind and body didn't know how to react to so many simultaneous stimuli. I was definitely confused. Just thinking about the future conversation I would have to have with Mary about what happened tonight made me depressed. But I was moving forward. That was all that was required of me at this point. Recognition, tears, and nightmares would come later, but I wouldn't let them overwhelm me. It was survival mode. For now, keep marching. The smell of burnt hair filled my nostrils again. I turned around to scan the shadows, but nothing stood out. I listened for clicking or rustling sounds, but heard neither. God, I knew they were still there, watching, waiting, taking inventory of us. How did we react? Would we fight them? Who would be the next Reggie? I returned to Moss Tacos. The remaining staff was quietly cleaning up. No one talked much. It was an experience that couldn't be expressed in words. Reggie sat in the corner wearing Doug's jacket. His eyes stared into the distance. Reggie. I sat next to him. If you ever want to talk, anytime. He nodded slightly.
They've been chasing me for 3 years. First in Oregon, then Washington, now here.
Why?
I don't know. But once you're marked, they never give up.
He looked down at the scars on his thigh.
This is the 7th. 3 more in.
3 more and what?
10. Then they take me. Forever.
My blood ran cold. How do you know that?
Because I've seen others. People with 10 marks. They're not the same anymore. They look human, but they're different.
Reggie was silent for a long time. Then, as if opening an old wound, he slowly began to speak.
When I was first marked in Oregon, I wasn't alone. There was a woman working at the same fast food place. Her name was Marissa. She had started getting marked before me and already had 8 scars.
His voice trembled.
By the time I got my 3rd mark, Marissa got her 9th. She was scared. She kept saying, next is the last one, but we didn't know what would happen.
And then?
The night she got her 10th mark, Marissa changed. She looked the same, but inside was different. The way she talked, walked, laughed, everything was subtly wrong. Like someone else was wearing her body.
Jenna and Doug approached. Their faces were also pale.
What should we do from now on?
Jenna asked in a small voice.
Live normally,
Reggie answered.
but be careful. Don't be alone at night. If you smell something strange, run immediately. And never, ever look directly at their true forms.
Are there other rules?
Doug asked. Reggie was quiet for a long time.
Don't try to record their voices. Don't linger in places after they've left. And be careful when you tell this story to others. Every time you tell it, the person who hears it might also attract their attention.
I shuddered. Anyone listening to this story now also knows about them. An hour later, we closed the store. I promised to explain to Mary the next morning. Tonight, it was important that all of us got home alive. In the parking lot, the 4 of us huddled together. No one wanted to go home alone.
Will you come tomorrow?
Jenna asked Reggie.
Probably. If they'll still hire me.
Of course, I answered immediately. We're team, right? Reggie showed his first real smile. We walked toward our cars. Paul had texted me, and we were meeting at a nearby diner. They might not have strong liquor, but coffee and normal conversation would be enough. Before getting in my car, I looked back once more. Under the Moss Tacos sign, I could see the black soot pattern on Chester Bank's wall in the moonlight. 7 triangles. 1 destiny. I started the engine and left the parking lot. In the rearview mirror, I watched the strip mall slowly disappear from view. As I kept looking in the rearview mirror, I could see pale blue light leaking from Chester Bank's windows again. This time, it was more regular, flashing like Morse code. The other stores were completely dark, but I could see a human figure standing across the parking lot. Due to the distance, I couldn't make out details, but the figure was unnaturally still. I accelerated and headed for the highway entrance. I couldn't look in the rearview mirror until I had put a safe distance between us, but the smell of burnt hair was lingering inside my car too. This is what happened 2 months ago. Since then, I've quit the night shift. I switched to day shifts. Reggie appears once a week with a new scar. The 8th, the 9th. Doug and Jenna also moved to days. We had an unspoken agreement not to be alone at Moss Tacos after 10 p.m. I meet with Paul occasionally. He also switched to day shifts. No one at Burgers Ahoy volunteers for night shifts anymore. I told Mary a partial truth. There was a power outage, there was damage, and Reggie was lightly injured. Mary said nothing and just shook her head in resignation. I casually asked Mary about Mr. Adamant owning both Moss Tacos and Burgers Ahoy and getting loans from Chester Bank, but she made a scary face and scolded me. Don't try to know more than you should. I sensed fear from her. She filed insurance claims and arranged for repairs. The new drive-through window looks exactly like the old one, but the soot pattern on Chester Bank's wall won't come off with any detergent. The fact that you're hearing this story means you now know about them too. The first sign that this will happen to you will be the smell. Burnt hair and something chemical. If you smell that, you should leave immediately. Don't be alone. Don't work night shifts. And most importantly, it's now 2:47 a.m. Someone is standing under my apartment window. Black trench coat and derby hat, holding an old pocket watch. He's looking up, smiling. A small triangular scar is beginning to appear on my forehead.